How many times have you heard or read the phrase, just surrender and let the God take over, or just surrender and let life take over, or simply surrender, don't control? And how many times did you go, yeah, but how? If I knew how, I wouldn't be watching the 100th video on surrender. This was me for about 10 years. In this video, I'm going to show you why it has been impossible for you to surrender and how you can live in the state of surrender and be at peace for good. I live fully present, being one with life, being at peace, no matter what is going on around me, no matter what situation occurs. And I'm a mom, I have a coaching business, this is my business. I have errands to run. I have household to take care of. I travel, I live normal life. And in the past 5 years, I haven't done any spiritual practice. I haven't done any spiritual method. I haven't watched spiritual video. And I do not spend my days sitting on the sofa, meditating and surrendering. No matter what you are going through, no matter how frustrating the situation your experience is, no matter how long or how hard you have tried to surrender, you can be at peace. In fact, any situation that is causing your suffering, your frustration, is a pointer to be in your surrendered state, to be in your natural state. Whether it is a health situation, whether it is business situation, so finance issues or any other issue, business issue, whether it is relationship problem, whether it is anything, any other life situation, it is a pointer for you to be in the surrendered state. And when you live in the surrendered state, that situation that is causing your suffering will disappear from your life experience. Just like a client who reached out to me after watching one of my videos and used a link to book a single coaching session with me, because she was at the end of the weeds. She suffered from fear and anxiety, but for the last year she suffered from severe insomnia, from the overthinking and fear. And in the last 8 months, her menopausal symptoms started, so she experienced severe hot flushes during the night. So completely exhausted, completely with lack of sleep, she reached out to me. And by following what I share in this video, she just sent me a message 3 days ago that in the last 3 weeks, she hasn't experienced any hot flashes. Her menopausal symptoms were gone. So by strictly following my guidance, all the symptoms disappeared in just 8 weeks. And as she stated, she didn't change anything else. She stopped looking for solutions. In order to be able to live in the surrender state and be at peace, you need to understand how the mind or the ego makes it impossible for you to surrender. And we need to really start with the definition of the surrender, because it's really not about what you do, it's about what you are doing that doesn't help you to be in the surrender state, or better yet, that keeps you in the in the illusion of the control. And when you watch spiritual videos, when you hear spiritual messages about surrender, it's really about releasing the control or yielding to a higher power, right? And this is the very definition of surrender is keeping you in the non-surrendered state, and it's making it impossible for you to surrender, because it's really about the control and the perception of control. In the free training, which you can find a link below to, I explain how the ego and the mind gives you a perception of control, because your natural state, the state you are born in, is not control. It's a state of awareness. It is the surrendered state. This is how the babies are born. This is the state you were in for the first few months of your life until the ego, the mind, started forming. This is the state you experience when you die. And in the middle, between the birth and the death, there is this mind, there is the ego giving you illusion of control. And that is the main issue why you have been having such a hard time to surrender. Because when someone tells you, when I tell you, surrender the control. Now what am I supposed to surrender? What control? Of what? Right? You cannot do that. That's impossible. It's about illusion of control. Illusion of control. There is no control. There is only illusion of control. When you are born, and in the first months of your life, before your identity is formed, you do not control anything. You do not control your thoughts. They are just floating and you don't pay attention to them until they teach you, until you are being taught what a thought is and how to use thoughts and how to use the mind. And the identity is being formed. You don't control your emotions. You cry because you cry. You laugh because you laugh, because there is something funny, or, because you laugh. You're angry because a sibling takes away your toy. You don't control emotions. Emotions just flow through you as an experience until you're being taught to start controlling your emotion. And now you pay attention to them, and I shouldn't be doing this. Oh, no, you shouldn't be crying. Stop crying, or do this or do that. And that is how the identity is formed. That is how the mind is formed. And that is how the false sense of identity is formed, the false sense of control. But your natural state is a state of surrender. It is a state of being present, being aware, being one with life. You do not have the identity. You do not have, there is no separation between you and life. Life just happens, this happens, that happens, and you just watch, you just observe, you are aware, whether it is thoughts, whether it is emotions, whether it is something going on. Right? This is why babies laugh so much, because everything is kind of funny. Even their hand is funny. If you sometimes if you ever watched a really small baby, you know, they don't know that the hands, they are moving, that the hands they are flashing in front of their eyes. They don't know that it's their hand or hands. They don't know that they have body and that it is their body, because there is no identity. And as the identity is being formed, now I have my thoughts. Now I have my thoughts, which I need to control. And I can control. I'm being thought, and I have a perception that I can control my thoughts. Now I'm having my emotions, which I can control, and everyone is telling me I have to control, so I'm trying to control, which is impossible. And now I'm having my body, which I'm trying to control and I need to control, which is absolutely impossible thing to do, because it is a body. This is thoughts. They are not your thoughts. They are thoughts. They are not your emotions. They are emotions. There is not your body. It is a body, just like it is a moon, just like it is a sun, it is a wind, it is a landscape, it is a dog. Right? So with the ego, with the mind, the illusion of control is being created. So now, when someone tells you, surrender, stop controlling, surrender and stop controlling, this is why it's impossible to do. How can you surrender something you don't have? You don't have control, and you are trying to surrender it. No. There is only illusion of control. So I'm going to list 4 most common misconceptions that keep you and that make it impossible for you to be in a surrender state, no matter what technique you have tried. And it's going to become very clear to you why you haven't been able to surrender, to be in the surrendered state for so long, no matter what you have tried. And you will see how the illusion of control keeps being, how the mind or ego keeps active the illusion of control to keep you in the separation, in the false sense of identity. So the first one is focus on what you control, right? So you are being told, release the need to control everything. Life is happening, and just focus on what you can control. This is something I had trouble with, and that's why it took me 10 years to realize what I was doing. And being like a hamster on the wheel, just watching spiritual videos and all the spiritual practices and methods and techniques. So focus on what you can control. Impossible task, because now what can I control? Right? Now I would try not to control this thing, and then I would control this thing, because let's say I would try not to control one thing, but I would still control everything else in my life, which is a control. So telling you focus on what you control, not helpful. It's keeping you in the illusion. It's keeping you in the illusion that you actually have any control. The control is illusionary. So you cannot focus on this one thing not to control, and another thing, or the rest of your life, control. So let's say you have a relationship issue. So you may have tried to surrender or not to control this, but for the rest of the day and the rest of your life and your business and your kids and your health, you control. You're finding solutions, you're trying to manage everything. That's ego. That's being in the ego, being in the mind, being in the false sense of identity, being separate from life. It's not being in the surrendered state. It's in the being in the mind, in the ego. The second mistake or misconception that I see is surrendering through prayer. And it doesn't matter what religion you are, what is your religion. It may be surrendering to God, surrendering to Jesus, surrendering to Krishna if you're Hindu, surrendering to universe if you're about manifestations, surrendering to the self if you follow Advaita. It doesn't matter what is the perception of God. What is a prayer? If you surrender through prayer, what are you trying to do? You are trying to ask God to, and I'm using God, but again, any God you believe in, but you're trying to ask the higher power to take over your life, for example, right? Or to help you with something, with your problem. In that state, just the very act of asking God or praying to God is ego, is the mind keeping you in the sense of separation. Because now I am here and God is somewhere there. The higher power is somewhere there. And also, if I ask a higher power to take over, again, God to take over, if I ask God to help me with my situation, well, I am assuming that God doesn't know what my situation is. But God is omnipotent, omnipresent, omni-knowing. So if God doesn't know about my situation, then it's not God. Why would you need to tell God what your situation is? Why would you even need to pray to God to help you with your situation? You assume that God doesn't know, or the universe doesn't know. Again, doesn't matter which God. See the separation, see the ego, the mind. So God is omnipresent, God is omni-knowing, God is omnipotent. So then everything that there is God, and any situation I am in is God, because there is no separation and nothing needs to be done. Even a simple act of praying to higher power is control. You are trying to control. And that is why your prayers have been not answered. The third misconception and action that there is, and you may have been doing, I was guilty of that for many years because I didn't know better, is healing. Whether you are trying to heal your again, no matter whether it's mental healing, emotional healing, physical healing, physical illness, or healing a relationship or anything else, just healing. You know, you are healing something, and at the same time you are surrendering the outcome, right? So I'm doing this healing no matter what modality, but I am surrendering the outcome. I am being in the state of surrender. No, you are not. Because the very fact of healing, that you are healing something, is control, and it's not surrender. You cannot surrender in the future. You cannot surrender the outcome. Surrender is always now. Surrender cannot be in the future. So when you are healing something, but on your mind is, but I release everything to God or to universe, and I'm surrendering to the outcome, that is the ego and the mind. That is the control. Because if there would be, if you would perceive the illusion of control, you wouldn't heal anything. You will be just aware of what is. And that is the state of surrender. So watch for that. Watch out for that. Because it is keeping you in the illusion of control. The fourth thing I want to mention is, which, and this is something I see a lot when I work with my clients, it's a partial surrender. It's, Daniela, I can't surrender. I have this relationship issue and I can't surrender to this, and I surrender that my ex-husband or husband is doing this, but I have this illness and I cannot surrender that. There is no such thing as partial surrender, because surrender is not an action. You're either in the surrender state or you're in the mind, in the ego, in the control. And there is no such thing as surrendering something. You cannot surrender something. You cannot surrender your relationship but have problems surrendering your illness or business. Well, another issue. Because again, you cannot surrender something. Surrender happens regardless of what it is. Surrender is now and only now, and it's a state of being just aware of what is. That is surrender. The state of surrender is your natural state of the state of awareness. And in this natural state of awareness, you can watch and you can be aware of the ego and the mind and the illusion of control. Surrender is not something you do. It is not an action. It's not mental action. It's not emotional action. It's not physical action. It's not spiritual action. Surrender is a state of awareness. That is your natural state. That is the state you were born in. That is all. It is simply being. Surrender cannot happen in the future, and you can never surrender future, and you can never surrender past. Surrender is you being. You being aware. That is your natural state. You are naturally in the surrendered state when you are being. You are being aware of the resistance. You cannot release resistance to something. You cannot release resistance to life, for example. Because the moment you try to do it, there is life and there is you, and you're trying to release the resistance between life as it's happening on a daily basis in each moment and you. But that's the separation, and that's the separations the mind, the ego is creating for you. The truth is there is no separation. You can be aware of the separation and you can be aware of the resistance. But you cannot release resistance. You cannot surrender to God. You cannot surrender to universe. Because the moment you tried, and this is why it has been so impossible to do, because it is impossible to do. Because the moment you try it, there is God, there is universe, and there is me. And now I'm trying to surrender to higher power. But there is no world outside of your consciousness. And I do talk more about this in my previous videos. There is no world outside of your consciousness. There is no God or universe outside of the consciousness. And you may intellectually know it. You may have heard, universe is you. And you may even use affirmations, I am the universe. Well, it is the ego, the mind, using the affirmations doesn't help you. You're still suffering, you're still in the pain. See the separation, and that's the mind, that's the ego, creating the separation. And with the separation, there is always illusion of control. I'm trying to surrender to higher power. Even that is control. Even trying to surrender is control itself. But you never had any control. There is no control. How can there be control when you are alive? There is illusion of control when there is separation. But the illusion of control completely disappears when you realize there is no world or life outside of you. You are it. So if you are it, what is there to control? What is there to surrender to? By the way, if you had any control, then you could decide, I want to control this, and you would control it. But you cannot control your thoughts. You cannot control your emotions. You cannot control your illness. You cannot control your body. You cannot control other people. You cannot control your husband's behavior or your ex-husband's behavior. You cannot control that. Why? Because there is no control. The control has always been illusionary. How can you control something that exists only as a play of your consciousness? You are it. So surrender is being in your natural state of awareness, being fully present. this is what Buddha said, that all suffering is self-imposed. All suffering is caused by ignorance. And ignorance is the ego, is the mind, giving you the illusion of control and the separation from life. And the truth cannot come from any spiritual video, any video, not even this video. The truth needs to be experienced by you, by your own consciousness. So every moment, be aware of the ego, of the mind play, of the resistance of the ego, of the illusion of control the ego is giving you. Just be aware each moment. Practice being aware. Practice being in the state of awareness. There is a playlist which is awareness meditation playlist. You can find the link in the description. Practice that, because the more you are in the state awareness, the more you realize and perceive the illusion of the ego, of the mind, and how it is not you, and how it has been causing all your suffering, the separation. When you stay in the state of awareness, you don't need to surrender. You are in this surrendered state. That is your natural state. That is the state of being at peace. You are unshakable in that state because you perceive the truth. You are no longer being blinded by the veil of the mind, of the ego. You are back to your true natural state of peace.